Hey everybody, it's Luciv Kaiser here with a guide on beginner's guide to Civilization 6. So any sort of beginners out there who probably feel maybe overwhelmed or feel very confused when they're playing Civilization 6, this guide is meant for you. Because I definitely know some of the struggles because Civ could be a very complex game at sometimes and can be a bit overwhelming. So I'm just going to take it bit by bit, just a very introductory beginner's guide here. So let's jump into it. So, what's the common problem I've seen for people learning Civilization 6? The first thing is, or I guess the major thing is, what do I do? Um, so, there can be so many different options that you have available to you on even the first turn. And it can be a bit overwhelming and you don't know exactly what's best to do. Should I be doing this? Should I be doing something else? So it can be a bit overwhelming. Um, but that's okay. That's totally okay because Civ has a lot of features, but really it just comes down to um, yeah, so like there's too many options and there's like too many decisions, and you get really overwhelmed. Um, and so that's what I find a lot of people have problems with, and they feel like people feel like lost or aimless, like they don't actually start like with all these different options, like well, which should I pick, what should I do? Um, and so the solution for me is focus on your goals, what you want to do, um, coming up with a general strategy that gets you to that goal, and then performing uh, little tactics with like good judgment to support your strategy um, on the way. So let's sort of dive into these sort of three things that I think would help anyone uh, playing this game more in general, I think. So goals. So what are you trying to achieve? That's what you should be thinking about. What are you trying to do in this game? And there can be short-term goals, medium-term goals, or long-term goals. Um, like for example, in hockey, you want to like shoot on the net. Maybe that's a short-term goal, and then a medium-term goal is you want to like score a goal, right? And then a long-term goal is eventually you want to win the game, right? And for civilization, this could be a sort of a parallel to this. You maybe want to build an army, so you can kill other civs and then eventually get a win for a domination victory, something like that. So you can think of things like this. So just try and just think about what you're trying to do. Um, and knowing your civ and stuff like that will really help you figure out what your goal is, and knowing your situation will also um, inform you. So strategy. Strategy is sort of tied to goals, but let's just go through it. So this is how you trying to like how are you going to reach your goal? And it's more like a series of steps or processes that you're going to do. And a strategy could have multiple like mini goals inside of it. It's not separate from goals. It's sort of intertwined. Um, right. So you can have and these strategies are informed by your strengths, weaknesses, and like your current situation. Like depending on what's going on, you may want to do something different than you maybe have originally planned. Like you may have to change your strategy as you go. For example, for let's look at hockey. So maybe your goal is to score goals, and a strategy for this. Well, maybe your team is really fast, so your team can outskate the other team and control the puck. But you don't want to get physical, and maybe you want to shoot top right because the goalie has a weak blocker or something. Um, that's a like a very general strategy, but it's something you can work towards, right? And then in the case of civilization, let's say the goal is to conquer a nearby civ, right? So maybe part of your strategy would be to use my special unique unit that's really good at killing other units, and then you can wipe out their forces, making it a lot easier to siege his cities without your units dying. Right? It's pretty simple. That makes sense, right? That makes sense. Um, and then finally, tactics. So tactics are like the little things you do sort of in the moment, I would say. So this is like what are you doing to get an advantage? Or what are you doing in a single moment? Again, these are informed by your available options. So what you can build, what your units can do, and stuff like that, right? And this is also informed by your strengths and weaknesses as well, because you may have a unit that's particularly good at something, or your civ might be geared towards something. Um, and your decisions, when you're making these decisions, they should support your overall strategy, or at least not hinder it. Like you don't want to do something that's going to be put you in a worse situation, right? Um, for example, in hockey, you could think of, should I maybe pass to my teammate, or should I maybe shoot the puck up the boards, right? Like there's different options. Like both of these are kind of valid options. It's just which one is more appropriate at the time. And sometimes you may have two very valid options, or two or more valid options, and sometimes you just kind of have to go with one and see where it takes you. And so with civilization, this could be, should I make a unit or should I make a building, right? Like your city can really only do one of these two things, right? So um, it's sometimes a bit difficult to decide on these sort of things. But uh, in the next sort of slides, I'll sort of discuss how you can narrow down these options and maybe make a better decision. Speaking of decisions, we're talking about decision trees. So Um, is a decision tree? A decision tree is sort of like an option. Like you have different options, and based on some circumstances, you'll pick one or the other. So let's go through one. So let's say, example, what should I eat? Right? Everyone asks this question every single day of their lives. What should I eat? So you might go, is there food at home? Um, and maybe yes. Maybe you go cook some pasta, right? Or maybe no, right? You'll order pizza, right? So that's just a very simple, bare bones decision tree. You could have branching trees off that, like maybe um, instead of ordering pizza, you could order different things. Um, and like that, like so like you'd order, maybe like you have to like see who else is at home and like see what they also want to order for dinner or something like that, right? It could be a multiple, you have multiple decisions. And then for civic, for example, like maybe decision is, should I declare war? That's a pretty big decision in Civilization 6. Civilization in general, I think. Should I go declare war on this civilization? So like maybe you'll ask yourself, is my army bigger than their army, right? And yes, maybe you can go to war. Maybe it's good idea to go to war. Um, if no, maybe you should go build some more units or something, or um, maybe you need to figure out more about their army composition, or how big their army is. Maybe you need to do some scouting or something. So these are just some ideas like of how you come to some sort of conclusion on what to do. Um, Now we're going to talk about sort of planning your goals over sort of a game. I'm going to look at America as an example. So you could have basically two. America could have like two different things it could do. It could do domination if it wants to, or it could do culture, and it could have very different strategies and goals throughout the game that lead to that those objectives. So for domination in the early game, you could be building an army, trying to control your continent, and then mid game you're exploring the map, and you build up some industry and economy to support your army and build more units. And then the end game, you get your unique units. You get your fighter and your rough rider guy, and you go conquer the other cities. Right? That makes that's pretty good. That makes sense. Like it's very bare bones, but that's fine. And then on the other side, you got culture. So in the early game, you might just do some expanding. You might like defend your empire, make sure no one tries to conquer you. The mid game, you might build some wonders and theater squares, and you may explore the map and like try to make more friends. And then in the end game, you'll like build your unique film studio and build national parks and seaside resorts to get up all that tourism. Um, so you see, like this is like the same civilization, but you could have totally different strategies and plans. It's just sort of an example of how things can be different and how you could sort of break these out. Um, Now on to understanding your Civ. I think this is probably the most important part. Just understanding what your Civ is good at. Um, so first thing you might want to look at is or look into is does your civilization when does like the power of your civilization spike, or like when does the civilization shine? I would say. So do they shine really early game? Do they have a lot of like early game sort of units or buildings that they can use? Or are they more mid game, or maybe late game? Or are they kind of like even? Are they kind of just got some bonuses that work out, like help you out throughout the entire game, right? I think these are important things to consider, because like maybe if you spike in the mid game, you want to maybe build up in the early game and then spike in the mid game, um, and use that power to really push. And then think about what your civilizations like victory types are geared. Are they geared towards, right? Are they are they like a domination focused civ? Are they more culture or science or diplomacy? Um, if you look at the civilization bonuses that you get, they should give you a general idea of what your civilization's good at, what they're more weaker at. And you may also want to consider, how's your civ like different or special? Um, can your civ do something like earlier than other civs or faster than other civs, right? Like for example, Coupe, they can go in the ocean like immediately. They spawn in the ocean, right? So they can go around wherever they want. So a good thing for that is that you can go and settle on all the good locations before anyone else does, especially like on an island map or something. Like you can go find all the best locations and pick them before anyone else does. So that's an example there. And can your Civ do something like other Civs cannot? Yeah, that's what I just said. So yeah. Um, Now focusing, um, a big thing people always worry about when playing Civ, I find, is where to settle. It's a big question, because where you settle can have a big impact on how good your city is and how productive it is. So what you want to look at is, one of the first things is housing and fresh water. So fresh water determines the basic housing. You can look into exact numbers, but I'm just going to go over like the different sort of important factors here. Um, and it's okay if you don't exactly have fresh water. You can always make aqueducts and granaries and other things like that, to help boost up your housing. So maybe if it's a very strategic location, it's okay with getting some less housing or something like that. Or if you want a specific strategic resource or something. And sort of housing also goes into food, right? So the amount of food that's available in the tiles for your city determines the amount of population growth. Um, and the more population you have, the more people can work the different tiles of your 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 city. If you don't know, like when you're playing Civ, the number of people indicates how many tiles are being worked in that city. Not all the tiles that you have are being actually worked by your city. So if you click on the little like person icon, you can see what tiles your people are working. You can actually select those. You can actually tell your citizens to work specific tiles if you want. Um, and food's very important because lets your population grow. If you don't have enough food, your population is going to stagnate and it's not going to grow very high. Another big thing, especially in Civilization 6, I find is production. And this makes your city build things faster, right? Um, so it's good. So make sure you have a good amount of production in your city when you settle it. And also luxuries. Luxuries are very important because they keep your people happy. You need X amount of luxuries for every like 3 citizens or something. I encourage you to go look it up. And it's okay if you get duplicates. Duplicates are fine because they can be sold or traded to other civs for other luxuries or for gold. Um, and it's important to keep your people happy with these luxuries because then they are more productive. There's actually a bonus to the yields that you get. And if they're unhappy, they're not as productive. So you get sort of negative stuff, right? So you want to keep them at least like content, right? At least content, right? Um, you also want to consider great district adjacency bonuses. Like, are there some great areas around that might be have some amazing adjacency bonuses? Now, it's sort of difficult to tell because um, you don't have that lens where you can see the adjacencies until you put that city down. But you'll learn sort of what all the district adjacencies are, and you can sort of envision or imagine your city being in a certain location and what those districts might look like. Another thing to consider when selling is it maybe a strategic location, like maybe like a choke point. Like there's maybe a mountain pass that narrows, and any other civ would have to come through that pass, right? So maybe that's a good choke point, like settle like just near that choke point, so then you can like rain fire down on anyone trying to get through, and their numbers will mean nothing because they all have to come through that choke point. Or maybe there's a good place for a canal, which will cut down time of your ships, right? So maybe a good canal placement might be important. Or maybe you want just to settle a city as sort of a buffer between you and another civ. Maybe you want some area between another civ and your capital. So if they attack you, you have a bit of area. You may also want like something like a staging point. Like imagine you're trying to attack somebody across the ocean, right? Maybe you can find a small island nearby that continent, and you can maybe put a city there, and you can send your forces there as a staging point. And if you need to retreat, you can retreat back to that island and like heal up your forces, right? That's what sometimes I look for, and I think that's a good idea. And you may want to even just prevent expansion. Like you may want to go um, to an area that you know that this other civ might want to expand to, and you want to get your settler out there before the other civ does, so it sort of blocks them, it stops them from expanding too close, too far, and preventing them from getting the stuff that you want. Um, Another thing to look at is strategic resources. So, these are the different. I think I got them all. Strategic resources in the game. There's horses, iron, niter, coal, oil, aluminum, and uranium. So you want to look out for those when you're settling, because especially if you're going domination, because you want to be able to fuel your army without having to without like um, having to trade too much or something um, like that, right? So that makes sense. And here's the last slide. It's going to just be some tips and tricks I have while playing Civilization. Um, Big thing is just read the wiki for information and strategies. The wiki is pretty good. I find it's usually pretty updated. Um, and they do have some strategies on some of the civs if you click into them. They have like some basic sort of strategies that you can sort of copy for yourself. Another thing is don't always do what the advisor tells you. The AI isn't like super great in the game. It doesn't know, especially because the advisor doesn't know what you're trying to go for, right? It doesn't know your goal. It doesn't know your strategy. Um, so like sometimes it can be helpful, but I find I always just go with what I know I need. Um, don't always do what the advisor tells you. Don't just use it as a guide sometimes because it doesn't always know what you need. Um, um, Also, like ask people on the subreddit or the Civ forums if you have any questions. A lot of people are pretty nice, I find. They usually can get you a good answer. So that's always a good resource if you ever have any trouble. Um, Another good thing is use the in-game encyclopedia and search function. So in the top right corner of your screen, whenever you're playing, there should be like a little like question mark icon. If you click on that, there's a giant page that opens up and has everything that you could almost want. You can search up what you're looking for, and you can find out what they do. Like, for example, you want to find out the adjacency for a campus, right? You open that up and you type in campus, and you'll see all the things that give a campus adjacencies, right? So everything from civs to units to sort of game features and stuff like that are all explained in there. There's also a search function just above the map. So say, for example, you're searching for a specific resource, like maybe you really want some iron. You can type that in that little search above the map, and it will show you all the tiles that have that thing. So it will show you all the tiles that have iron, and you can um, sort of uh, use that to maybe help you decide where to settle. And another thing that I like to do is use pins, especially because I'll play a game and then I'll I'll leave it for a day or two, and then when I come back, I don't remember what I was trying to do, and maybe I'll put something down that I didn't mean to do. Um, so using pins just definitely helps for you to remember where you want to do things, where you want to put things, and so that helps you geographically um, figure out how your civilization is going to look. Another thing I like to do is turn on the Civ yield. So if you go under options and then under interface, and there's a little thing called show yields on ribbon. You can adjust that. I like to have it always on. So then I can always see how the other civs are doing sort of at a glance. So I can know whether, they have a giant army. Should I be worried? Or are they really headed in science or something? And if you, Another thing I always do is I always keep my yields on. You can turn on the tile yields just by pressing Y. You can toggle them off by pressing Y again. I like to keep them on all the time because then I can know exactly what I'm getting. So this is very important when you're settling cities as well. So you could turn on the tile yields and see what tiles your city would be using. And I think that might be it. Yeah, that's it. Thanks again for tuning in. If you could like and subscribe, that'd be great. But I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye.